Hello and welcome to Bry's Book and Film. It's coming up for Christmas, so what better film to talk about than the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, my all-time favourite Christmas film. There's plenty of Christmas films out there, but the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is my absolute favourite. It's the third film in the Vacation series. It was directed by Jeremiah S. Chechik, written by John Hughes. I think he produced it as well. And of course it stars Chevy Chase as our lovable lunatic Clark W. Griswold. And he's got his wife, Ellen, played by Beverly D'Angelo. The children this time are played by Johnny Galecki, who you've known from millions of other things, and Juliette Lewis, who again is you've seen Juliette Lewis. And making a sort of guest appearance is Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie. He makes a surprise appearance sort of towards the beginning, not quite at the beginning, but we've sort of done the introductions, and then Cousin Eddie and his wife Catherine and their two children and their dog Snots are introduced. Back in 1989, this film had a budget of $25 million and it grossed $73.3 million. Now, I've actually done some research. I've got a clipboard with notes. I've done it properly this time. Now, this film for me will get 5 hot coffee cups on the coffee cup scale rating, because I find it that good. I've watched it this morning. I've had a recap of it. Every year I will watch it at Christmas time, coming up for Christmas, beginning of December, end of November, beginning of December, to get me in the Christmas spirit, to get me in the mood for Christmas. So we start off, the opening credits are sort of Santa trying to deliver presents with the reindeer and everything, and various misadventures in the animated credits. Then we get into the film, and Clark, our lovable lunatic, is taking his family to find the Clark family, the Griswold, family Christmas tree. And in typical Clark fashion, there's plenty of, they go all the way out into the wilderness, and he finds the perfect tree, and there's a sort of sunlight down from heaven sort of thing. A shaft of light lights the tree. Sorry, I've got an itchy head there. And they get all the way there, and he says, "This is it, the Griswold family tree." And then Rusty says, "Well, where's the axe?" So, actually, before we get to the tree, there's a bit of a road rage thing. A couple of hillbillies come up behind Clark. Ellen and Clark are singing. The children are in the back seat, groaning, and he gets into it with a couple of hillbillies in an old pickup truck, and then end up sort of racing up the road, and Ellen's telling him to leave it, which is the wise thing to do, but Clark can't, and then he ends up sort of going to overtake the hillbillies, but ends up underneath an articulated truck carrying logs, a logging truck, and he ends up under that, and then he pulls away and goes airborne over a big mound of snow and crashes into the car park of the Christmas tree place. And he says, "Right, well, here we are then, Kushti." So then they go find the tree. Where's the axe? Haven't got it. The next shot is they're back on the highway to go home. So they're back on the highway, they're going home, they get the tree indoors. The tree is absolutely enormous, far too big for the Griswold front room. There's lots of sap, it's just a mental tree. It's absolutely mental. Then we move on to Clark doing the Griswold family lights on the house. He decorates the entire house, goes absolutely crazy with it. At first it won't work, there's a fault with the connection, and it's not switched on, and he starts to go mad, and the family, who by now are joined by the grandparents, because he wants this big family Christmas, his in-laws are not impressed. His own parents are trying to be supportive. Eventually we get the lights on, and you have the iconic scene of the rest of the neighbourhood going dark. The man's hand pushing up the lever at the nuclear power station to top up the system there. And then there's various while we're faffing around with these Christmas lights, that's where cousin Eddie and his wife Catherine appear. They weren't invited. It was a complete surprise. Then we go through various misadventures. We follow Clark at work. He's talking about his Christmas bonus that he's going to get. How he's talking to his co-worker, and he's saying, look, I'm going to put in a swimming pool and it's going to be quality, and I've paid out all this money. And he says, well, yeah, you deserve the bonus, you've worked hard, etc., etc. So various misadventures. Cousin Eddie he's sort of on the ponce, he's on the ear roll, because he's got no money, because he's skint. He lives in a big old camper van RV thing. Clark is still getting some heat from his in-laws. Not a lot of heat, but some heat. They're not impressed. They think he's a lunatic as well, which is fair. There's also aggro with the neighbours, Todd and Margot, because they're stuck up and snobbish, and they think Clark's a lunatic, and they don't like him either. Various misadventures go into the lead up to the Griswold family Christmas. It really is. It's a heartwarming film. There's plenty of slapstick action. The loft scene especially will, there's accidents galore when he's putting his lights on the house. The loft scene just makes me chuckle every single time I see it. Various. So we've got the subplot of the Christmas bonus. Moving through the film. It's just that good. I'm not doing it any justice at all. But so it all leads up. Clark is still worried about this Christmas bonus that hasn't come through yet, and it's right on Christmas Eve. And he's really stressing about this bonus that hasn't come yet. He's supposed to be getting a check. Eventually, some gormless delivery driver knocks on the door and says, look, I've slipped down between the seats of the truck, and here it is. So Clark shuts the door, and he's all excited. He goes, yeah, whatever, mate. And he shuts the door, and he opens the check. This just big juicy Christmas bonus that he's expecting, because he has worked hard. And it's a membership for a jelly club, an annual membership. And Cousin Eddie tries to be upbeat about it, and he says, well, that's the gift that keeps on giving. And Clark is really, really upset now, because he's spent all this money on a deposit to break ground when springtime comes, and he's not got the money. He's got membership to a jello club. So he's not impressed with that, and he sort of freaks out. He loses the plot, and he says, if anyone wants to get me a Christmas present, he said, I want my boss from his gaff down on, I think it's Melody Lane, to be brought here, so I can give him a piece of my mind type of thing. So Cousin Eddie says, oh, I've got an idea. So off he goes. You don't see Cousin Eddie for a while. There's a squirrel let loose in the house. One of Clark's uncles sets fire to the tree, destroys the Christmas tree, so he goes outside and he gets another tree in, chops down the tree, but there's a squirrel in it, and the squirrel's running around the house, and then Snots, the Cousin Eddie's dog, is chasing the squirrel. Between the two animals, they just destroy the place. So you've got Clark's uncle something blows up the Christmas tree. You've got the animals wrecking the place. You've got the family giving him heat, because he's building it up to be something he really wants, and he wants this big family idyllic Disney Christmas, and it's not that. It's not that. It's just chaos and carnage and destruction. So anyway, so eventually Cousin Eddie returns with Clark's boss, Frank Shirley, tied up, and the guy's in his pajamas, and and he says, "What's the meaning of this?" He says, "You're fired, Clark. You're out." And he says, "Well, this weren't my idea." Eddie says, "It weren't his idea, it was my idea," and they get to it. And he says, "Well, what's all this for?" And he says, "Well, because I was expecting a Christmas bonus, and you've given me this sort of rubbish Christmas thing." And he says, "How did you get a bonus? I'll cut all the bonuses." And he says, "Yeah, exactly." He says, "But you've got to tell people because it's not fair otherwise." So meanwhile, outside, while they're talking indoors about Frank Shirley cutting a Christmas bonus to try and save a few cents here and there, you've got the SWAT teams, because they've obviously tracked Eddie's big camper van RV thing to Clark's house. So you've got the police and the SWAT teams and all these sort of things, and it's complete and utter overkill, as you would expect. And the police come crashing through the windows, and they break the door down, and there's police everywhere, and there's police, marksmen and stuff, and police cars, and and then Mrs. Shirley is brought in, and she says, "What's the meaning of all this? You're all going to be going to jail," and blah blah blah. And then Frank Shirley says, "No, it's my fault because I tried to cheap out. I was a cheapskate." And then everybody starts giving Mr. Shirley some heat then for being a cheapskate. And he says, "No, there's no problem, no charges. Take last year's bonus." He says, "Get last year's bonus and add 20%. He said, and that's it. So, and the film ends sort of happily ever after. There's no no furniture left in the house that's not destroyed. Everything is just smashed and broken. It's a really good film. I mean, it's a family film about Christmas, with some slapstick thrown in, but it is a heartwarming film. It is a nice film. You would watch this film with your gran in the room. I've watched it with my own children when they were young. So, and as my sort of grandchildren get older, I'll be making them sit down to watch it with me, because that's what you can do. Watch this really good Christmas film, kids. It is the best Christmas film you'll see ever. 5 hot coffee cups on the coffee cup scale. It is that good. If you've not seen the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation yet, after all this time, I strongly advise you to just either stream it on one of the millions of streaming apps that we have at our disposal now, or buy it on DVD like I did. There's a collection. It's like I've got the European Vacation, the Vacation, the Christmas Vacation, the Vegas Vacation, and there's another film in the set that I haven't really bothered. I think it's the new vacation film that I think's got Ed Helms in it, but that's a different story for a different day. So I bought the collection. It was only cheap. I bought it off Amazon, so you can always get good deals. But buy it on DVD and or stream it and give it a watch. You won't be disappointed. It is that good. I watch it this sort of time every year to get myself in the Christmas spirit, get myself in the mood for Christmas. It is that good. It is that good. Give it a watch. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.